I-29F, never thought I'd be writing this, but here I am, 4 years later, finally ready to tell this story. Some of you might think I'm a monster by the end of this. Others might understand. I honestly don't care anymore. 4 years ago, I was married to someone I thought was my soulmate. We'd been trying for a baby for 2 years, going through fertility treatments, the whole 9 yards. When I finally got pregnant, we were over the moon. His mother, who had always been cold to me, suddenly started acting like I was her favorite person in the world. At 16 weeks, during what should have been a routine checkup, the doctor couldn't find a heartbeat. The baby was gone. Just like that. No explanation, no warning. These things just happen sometimes, they said. I was devastated. Completely broken. The doctor scheduled a procedure for the next day to remove the baby, but I needed time to process. I went home in a daze, barely able to function. That's when it happened. I was lying on our bed, still in shock, when my husband came in with his mother. I could hear them talking in the hallway first. She was saying something about how maybe this was for the best, that I was too career-focused anyway. He was agreeing with her. When they walked into the bedroom, I pretended to be asleep. I wanted to hear what they'd say when they thought I couldn't hear them. His mother looked at me lying there and made some comment about how I was being dramatic. Then my husband said the words that changed everything. He told his mother that at least we failed on purpose, that I never really wanted kids anyway. His mother actually laughed. She said maybe now I'd stop being so selfish and focus on being a proper wife. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. These people I trusted were standing over me while I was grieving the loss of our child, talking about me like I was some kind of burden. Like losing our baby was somehow my fault or even a relief. That night, I was still bleeding from the miscarriage. The cramping was getting worse, but I couldn't stay in that house another second. While he was asleep, I packed a small bag and left. I drove to my sister's house 3 states away, bleeding through my clothes, crying so hard I could barely see the road. I never went back. I filed for divorce through a lawyer. Didn't take anything except my personal belongings and half of our savings account. I wanted nothing that connected me to him or his family. I moved across the country, changed my phone number, blocked them on everything. I needed to disappear completely. The first year was hell. I was dealing with the grief of losing the baby, the trauma of that night, and the complete destruction of my life as I knew it. I went to therapy, threw myself into work, and slowly started rebuilding. By year 2, I was doing better. I'd gotten a promotion at my new job and was actually starting to feel like myself again. I even started dating someone new, a kind, gentle man who knew my story and never pushed me about kids or marriage. Year 3 brought even more success. I'd started my own consulting business and was making more money than I ever had before. I bought a beautiful house, traveled, lived exactly the life I wanted. The life his mother said I was too selfish to deserve. Which brings me to last month. I was at a conference in my old city for work. I'd been dreading going back, but it was too important for my business to skip. I was walking out of the hotel after the first day when I saw him. He looked terrible. Older, tired, like life had beaten him down. He was with a woman I didn't recognize. Young, probably early 20s, very pregnant. She was struggling with some heavy bags while he walked ahead, not helping. He saw me before I could escape. His face went completely white. He said my name, asked if it was really me. I just stared at him, remembering that night 4 years ago. The pregnant woman caught up to us, asking who I was. He introduced me as his ex-wife, and I could see her confusion. She asked if I was the one who couldn't have kids. That's when I realized he'd been telling people I was infertile. That our miscarriage was somehow my failing. I looked at this young woman, so pregnant and vulnerable, and felt something cold settle in my chest. I told her that was interesting, since I'd never had any fertility issues. I mentioned that we'd actually gotten pregnant quite easily, but unfortunately lost the baby. Her face changed. She asked what I meant. I explained that we'd miscarried at 16 weeks, and that it had been devastating for both of us. I said I was sure he'd told her about it. He was trying to interrupt, saying we should all move on, but she wasn't listening to him anymore. She was staring at him with this look of dawning realization. I excused myself and walked away, but I could hear them starting to argue behind me. The next morning, I got a friend request on Facebook from her. Her profile was public, and I could see she'd been posting about relationship problems for months. Posts about feeling alone during her pregnancy, about her boyfriend not being supportive, about his mother making cruel comments about her weight and background. I accepted the request. She messaged me immediately. She wanted to know the truth about what happened between us. She said he'd told her I was selfish and career-obsessed, that I'd refused to have children and eventually left him for someone with more money. I told her everything. About the miscarriage, about what he and his mother said that night, about leaving while I was still bleeding. I sent her screenshots of medical records I still had, showing the pregnancy and loss. She was quiet for a long time. Then she told me about her own experiences with him and his mother. How they'd been pressuring her to quit her job and be a stay-at-home mom. How his mother constantly criticized her appearance and intelligence. How he'd been emotionally distant throughout her entire pregnancy. She said she was starting to see a pattern. Update 1. 3 days later, she messaged me again. She'd confronted him about lying about our marriage and miscarriage. He'd admitted to it but said he only lied because he didn't want her to worry about his ability to be a good father. He claimed his mother had been the one saying those cruel things, not him. But she'd been thinking about it, and she remembered other lies he'd told. Small ones at first, but they were adding up. She was starting to question everything. She asked if I'd be willing to talk to her on the phone. I said yes. During our 2-hour conversation, she told me about their relationship. How he'd love-bombed her in the beginning, then gradually became more controlling. How he'd isolated her from her friends and family. How his mother had inserted herself into every aspect of their relationship. It was like listening to my own story, just with different details. She was 7 months pregnant and felt trapped. Her family lived across the country, and she'd burned bridges with most of her friends because of his manipulation. She was financially dependent on him and terrified of being a single mother. I found myself in an impossible position. Part of me wanted revenge against him for what he'd done to me. But this woman was innocent, and she was carrying his child. Whatever I did would affect that baby too. I made a decision that some of you will probably judge me for. I offered to help her. Update 2. I flew back to that city the following weekend. I helped her find a lawyer who specialized in family law and domestic relations. I went with her to appointments and helped her understand her rights. She had more options than she thought. The state had strong protections for pregnant women, and she could file for support even before the baby was born. She also had documentation of his emotional abuse, texts, emails, social media posts where he'd been cruel or controlling. More importantly, I helped her reconnect with her family. Her parents had been worried about her for months but hadn't known how to reach out without causing more problems with him. When she finally called them and explained what was happening, they immediately offered to help. Within 2 weeks, she'd moved out. She went to stay with a cousin who lived nearby until she could figure out her long-term plans. He was furious. He started calling and texting both of us constantly. He accused me of poisoning her against him, of being bitter and vindictive. He said I was destroying his family because I couldn't have one of my own. His mother was even worse. She somehow got my new phone number and left voicemails calling me every name in the book. She said I was a jealous, barren woman who couldn't stand to see others happy. I saved every message. Update 3. The baby was born 6 weeks ago. A healthy little girl. Her mother named her after her grandmother, not his mother, which apparently caused a huge fight. He's been ordered to pay child support, but he's fighting for custody. His lawyer is trying to paint her as unstable and me as a manipulative influence. They're claiming she abandoned the relationship because of my interference. That's when I played my final card. I'd kept in touch with some mutual friends from our marriage. Over the years, a few of them had reached out to apologize for not supporting me better during the divorce. They'd started to see his true colors as time went on. One of them had been at a party last year where he'd gotten drunk and bragged about how he'd dodged a bullet when I left. He'd told a room full of people that I was damaged goods after the miscarriage and that he was glad I'd saved him the trouble of divorcing me himself. My friend had recorded it. I gave the recording to her lawyer. The custody hearing was last week. When they played that recording in court, his whole narrative fell apart. Here was clear evidence of his character, his lack of empathy, and his willingness to lie about our marriage and my miscarriage. The judge was not impressed. He got limited supervised visitation and was ordered to attend parenting classes and anger management before any custody arrangement could be reconsidered. His mother was in the courtroom and had a complete meltdown when the ruling was announced. She started screaming about how I'd ruined their family, how I was evil and vindictive. Security had to escort her out. I felt nothing watching her fall apart. After 4 years, I'd finally gotten my justice. But here's the thing that's been bothering me since all this happened. I keep asking myself if I did the right thing. Yes, I helped a woman escape an abusive situation. Yes, I protected a child from growing up in a toxic environment. But I also can't deny that part of me was motivated by revenge. I wanted him to feel the same helplessness I felt that night 4 years ago. I wanted him to lose something precious and have no control over it. I wanted his mother to see her perfect son exposed for what he really was. And I got all of that. The woman and her baby are doing well. She's moved back home to be near her family, and she's starting a new job next month. She sends me pictures of the baby sometimes, and she seems genuinely happy. He's apparently spiraling. Mutual friends say he's been drinking heavily and can't keep a job. His mother has been telling anyone who'll listen that I'm some kind of vengeful witch who destroyed her son's life. Maybe I am. But you know what? I don't feel guilty about it. That night 4 years ago, when I was at my lowest point, grieving the loss of our child, he chose cruelty over compassion. He chose his mother's approval over his wife's pain. He chose to mock my grief rather than share it. He made his choice then. I just made sure there were consequences for it. Some people might say I went too far, that I should have just moved on and lived my life. But sometimes the only way to truly heal is to make sure the person who hurt you can never hurt anyone else the same way. I'm not proud of the revenge aspect of what I did. But I am proud that I helped someone escape a situation that could have destroyed her and her child. I'm proud that I turned my pain into something that protected another woman from experiencing what I went through. 4 years ago, I left that house broken and bleeding, with nothing but the clothes on my back. Today, I have a successful business, a loving relationship, and the satisfaction of knowing that the man who tried to destroy me ultimately destroyed himself. Sometimes justice takes time. Sometimes you have to create it yourself. And sometimes, the best revenge really is living well, and making sure others get the chance to do the same. I still think about that baby I lost sometimes. I wonder what they would have been like, what kind of life we could have given them. But I know now that losing that baby saved me from a lifetime of emotional abuse. In a twisted way, that loss led me to the life I was meant to have. I'm finally at peace with all of it. The grief, the betrayal, the revenge, the justice. It's all part of my story now, and I wouldn't change any of it. Well, maybe I'd change the part where his mother called me barren. That was just unnecessarily cruel. But everything else? No regrets.